Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hey everybody, it's Jeff. Hope everybody's doing okay today. It's cold and we're getting a little bit of snow and some winds on top of that. So it's really kind of a wintry day, and I guess a lot of people are like, "Oh, we thought we were coming into spring," but I guess the groundhog was right about more snow. As amazing as that sounds, yeah. So here we are. We're still getting the snow and the cold and everything. Even now, you can hear the wind blowing. I don't know if you can pick it up with this microphone here, but yeah, blowing. I guess about 30-mile-an-hour gusts, which isn't as strong as the winds we kind of get anyway, but bad enough, because what happens is even if you only get like a couple inches of snow, the wind piles it by blowing it, before you know it, you got one side of your vehicle is like all the way up to the driver's side window and the other side is no snow at all. So it still gets to be a pain in the ass, but but I heard we were supposed to get I don't know, 7 to 8, 9 or 10 inches, I guess, tonight. And then the rest of the week we're supposed to have smaller storms during the week, so we're going to get quite a bit by the time the week is over here that's out on the ground. So, but yeah, that's what it is when you live in Maine. You get you get all the seasons, you get all the weather. That's the way it is here. So I have this article I want to read here from Reuters. Entitled "Trump Administration Expands ICE Authority to Detain Refugees." The Trump administration has given immigration officers broader powers to detain legal refugees, not illegal, legal refugees, awaiting a green card to ensure they are, quote, revetted, unquote, an apparent expansion of the president's wide-ranging crackdown on legal and illegal immigration, according to a government memo. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security, in a memo dated February the 18th and submitted in a federal court filing, said refugees must return to government custody for, quote, inspection and examination, unquote, a year after their admission into the United States. Quote, this detain and inspect requirement ensures that refugees are revetted after 1 year, aligns post-admission vetting with that applied to other applicants for admission, and promotes public safety, unquote. The department said in the memo, under U.S. law, refugees must apply for lawful permanent resident status 1 year after their arrival in the country. The new memo authorizes immigration authorities to detain individuals for the duration of the reinspection process. The new policy is a shift from the earlier 2010 memorandum, which stated that failure to obtain lawful permanent resident status was not a quote-unquote basis for removal from the country and not a, quote, proper basis, unquote, for detention. The DHS did not respond to a Reuters request for comment outside regular business hours. The decision has prompted criticism from refugee advocacy groups. Afghan EVAC's president Sean Vandiver called the directive, quote, a reckless reversal of long-standing policy, unquote, and also said that it, quote, breaks faith with people the United States is lawfully admitted and promised protection, unquote. HIAS, formerly known as the Hebrew Immigration Aid Society, said the, quote, move will cause grave harm to thousands of people who were welcomed into the United States after fleeing violence and persecution, unquote. Under President Trump, the number of people in ICE detention reached about 68,000 this month, up about 75% from when he took office last year. Trump's hardline immigration agenda was a potent campaign issue that helped him win the 2024 election. A U.S. judge in January temporarily blocked a recently announced Trump administration policy targeting the roughly 5,600 lawful refugees in Minnesota who were awaiting green cards. In a written ruling, U.S. District Judge John Tunheim in Minneapolis said federal agents likely violated multiple federal statutes by arresting some of these refugees to subject them to additional vetting. Okay. You know, anyone who has a pending permanent residency application should, you know, consult an immigration attorney, I think, before appearing in person with other, you know, with another administration official, I would think. All I could say here is this. It's just another way for ICE to keep going after people. You know, first it was illegal immigrants. Now it's legal immigrants. And in the middle, you got innocent bystanders like the civilians out there getting gunned down, or ICE agents just bursting into businesses to look for people with guns drawn. I mean, you know, it's silly to think that these people are actually doing something according to the law. It doesn't look like it. Okay? It doesn't, none of it looks lawful to me and to a lot of people. In fact, you even got, you know, cops who have commented and said that these people are very unprofessional in what they're doing. And a lot of them don't understand the law that they're supposed to be out there enforcing. So it's not a wonder people, you know, are challenging them or in fear of them. Because, for one thing, I mean, like I said, they come with, well, like it's been shown, they come in unmarked vehicles. They don't dress like anything you would expect, you know, for a government official or, you know, somebody of that caliber. There's no official uniform that they wear. It's just something that they stamp on a vest, which I could pass myself off as an ICE agent. All I have to do is I'd go to the Army surplus store down the fucking road from here. They have everything that all these ICE agents you see wearing, you can get all that shit from one of them stores. Okay, even the gun, because they sell guns there too. I could walk out of there with the whole fucking getup and drive around in, you know, in my pickup. Okay, and I could just, you know, I could even have badges over there too, believe it or not. They got all kinds of assorted badges. I mean, how often do people really read the badge or really look at it to see if it's, you know, legit? They don't really do it. So I could get all what I need to go around and pretend I'm an ICE agent. And because of the atmosphere that's been created by ICE, people would be afraid of me. People would think I am ICE. And you know what? That's what I'm talking about here. I mean, there's people that could pass themselves off for a cop, but they wouldn't be able to get all the pieces of the, you know, what they would have to wear to be a police officer. They have a uniform, okay? They do have a uniform, and it looks official. But these ICE agents, they don't look official by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, they look, like I said, they look like anybody else you see. And I guess that should be a sign that, you know, because they don't look official, they don't act official either. Not very professional. So you wouldn't give a uniform to such people if they haven't been trained properly. Which is why I say they've been deputized by ICE. They're not really official ICE. They're just people working for ICE. You know, it's like hiring bounty hunters or something like that. That's essentially what they are. They're just out there grabbing people, you know, judging them by their looks, okay, race racial profiling, as they call it. And that's what they're doing. And now they're being told, well, if you want to get legal, immigrants, then you can too. Why? Are they trying to cover up their mistake by saying, well, they grab somebody who is legal and they say, well, Trump said we could go after illegal immigrants too. You see what I'm saying? I mean, they're pulling back the goalposts so that way they can get away with treating people that they think are illegal and treat them the same as the legal people that come here. And they can challenge and say, well, we're only operating under Trump's directive, which was really telling, because now he's letting these people scoop up legal immigrants. That means that they've actually been going after legal immigrants who they deemed as illegal. Okay, and so Trump has cut them some slack and said, yeah, okay, so what? You grab somebody, I'll okay it. If you mistakenly grab somebody that's legal and you detain them, I'm gonna okay that. Okay, by putting out this new directive. This covers your ass, so that way nobody can sue you for going after the wrong person. Okay, so I feel like this is kind of what's going on here. I mean, look, a rocket scientist you don't have to be in order to understand Trump and his administration and the wackadoodles that work in it. Okay, these people are beneath contempt. They really are. And they'll answer for this shit, hopefully, at the end of this mess. That's all we can do, is really hope that justice will prevail in the end here. Now, here's this other laughable fucking thing here. Trump here recently was toying with the idea of awarding himself the Congressional Medal of Honor over his Middle East visit. Perpetually obsessed with slapping his name on things, awarding himself prestigious honors, and personally suing struggling taxpayers for billions, Trump has now set his sights on the Congressional Medal of Honor, which he believes he earned. That one time he flew to Iraq on Air Force One to eat at the McDonald's in the Green Zone. Quote, I flew to Iraq. I was extremely brave, so brave I wanted to give myself the Congressional Medal of Honor. I said to my people, am I allowed to give myself the Congressional Medal of Honor? Someday I'm going to try. I'm going to test the law, unquote, the draft dodger admitted during a speech last night in Georgia. Dementia Dawn then preemptively started attacking the media for saying he wanted to give himself the Medal of Honor, which he literally just admitted to moments before. Quote, the fake news will say Donald Trump wants to give himself the Congressional Medal of Honor, but he was rebuffed by the audience, who stood up and booed the hell out of him, unquote. Safe to say there's never been anyone in American history who deserved the honor less than Donald Trump. Even Benedict Arnold actually served his country for a little while at least. Sometimes we have to wonder, is he acting, or is he really so demented or suffering with such a dementia that he's, doing this? I don't know. Everything about this guy has been dishonest, okay? There's people now, because of all this time of him lying about everything, people now are starting to wonder about that fucking assassination attempt that was made on him when he was campaigning for president for a second term. Okay, remember we supposedly got shot nicked his ear. Okay, there's people now that are starting to think that that was staged, even though it killed somebody. It wouldn't matter. To a guy like Trump, that, some innocent bystander got shot while they were trying to build him up as some sort of hero, right? That's all worth it. The people that die for this man or because of this man, it doesn't matter. As long as people believe his shtick, okay? He certainly doesn't care about many Americans losing their health care, right? A lot of people are going to die now because of that, and he doesn't care. So if he doesn't care about that, then that would make it easier to believe that whoever was shooting at him only did so in a way that wouldn't hit him, okay? And maybe never even touched his ear, okay? Think about this. When they were taking Trump off the stage, he was sitting there pumping his fists like, you know, fight, fight. Remember? He was saying that, fight. Does that sound like a normal reaction for someone who was just almost killed? You know what I'm saying? What kind of a person does that? It's like he's capitalizing on the moment. He wouldn't have done that unless he knew it was coming. Unless he knew he wasn't going to die, then there would be no point. You know? Like I said, you know, there's a lot there. I mean, because you think about everything that he's done since then. How he's lied to MAGA, how he's lied to the rest of the country, how he's done things and went above and beyond. You know? Is it so hard to believe that he faked that? I don't think so. I think it's clear to me. I mean, I'm willing to believe that. You know, I'll leave that up to you guys watching whether you want to believe that or not. But you have to take into consideration that you have to appraise the situation by the man that was involved in this. Okay? The man that was supposed to be the target. Like when, you know, lying about, oh, they're eating your cats and dogs. Again, he did that lie on purpose to energize the racists out there, okay, to create chaos, which is always what he wants to do. Even that, when I was talking about the assassination attempt, meant to create chaos. You know, that's the only reason why he's where he is because of that distraction. And right now, he's got two hospital ships heading to Greenland right now. I don't know if you heard about that. That was in the news today. This morning I read that. You know, to bring back Americans. Okay, something had happened. I can't remember now if it was a submarine over there that somehow got in trouble, and so they had to disembark in Greenland. And he's sending hospital ships. At least he said he was going to send hospital ships to Greenland to collect these men. Greenland says you don't have to. You know, we got it under control here. Okay, these people are fine. He's sending them anyway. Now, this coming out of his own mouth, people. Him saying that he was sending the hospital ships. And I'm wondering, are they hospital ships, or is this some sort of a foothold, a preemptive? Now think about this. Why was there a submarine over there in the first place? Okay, and now we're sending two ships over there that he says are hospital ships. Are they really hospital ships? I don't know. They don't show any pictures of the ships that are going over there. They might very well be hospital ships, okay? But that doesn't mean that on the inside that they're hospital ships, okay? He's been bragging about trying to take Greenland here for months now. And now all of a sudden we're having this little drama playing right off the coast of Greenland. All of a sudden now things are happening over there. What the hell's going on? Now we're sending Navy over there. You know? They don't want American ships over there, and I don't blame them, because I wouldn't trust Trump either. As far as I could piss, I wouldn't trust that son of a bitch, okay? And they have every reason to sit there and tell them, no, don't come over here. We'll send them back to you, okay? You don't need to come over here with your boats, okay? Like I said, you know, they have every reason to be on their guard. And I don't think they're really happy with the idea that there was a submarine parked off of their fucking coast here for whatever reason. What were they doing? Spying on them or something? You know, there's so much here that needs to be asked about this situation here. And for some reason, You know, the media hasn't really covered much about it. I just heard that, like I said, this morning I saw that in the on the news that they were doing that, but it was a very brief report about it. It was over and done with. Like, it's not something you need to worry about. No, those are the reports you need to worry about. When they're very brief and they're not really to the point, those are the ones you got to dig deeper into, because there is a truth being hidden from you that you're not seeing. Okay? And I would not fucking put it past Trump to use these hospital ships in some way that's obviously not honest. Okay? You know, what is kind of sad is that if I'm right, there's people in the military willing to follow through along with whatever plan this guy comes up with to do these things, which are illegal, by the way, to do this stuff. Do you think Trump is trying to create good faith between Greenland and this country? Does that sound like Trump to you? To do something to be kind, to be a person to be trusted? You know, think about that. I mean, we're used to having leaders before that restrain themselves. Okay, this guy doesn't. I mean, he's as bad as like that character Scarface in the movie. Okay, this guy will do anything to get what he wants. He wants Greenland. Look out, Greenland. Okay? If I was Greenland, I'd be arming myself to the fucking teeth right now, because I wouldn't trust this fucking guy here to keep the military at bay. He's going to unleash all hell on that country over there if he has to get that country. He's going to do what he wants. You got 3 more years with this guy. And a lot can happen in 3 years. I mean, we've already seen how much can happen in just 1 year. So keep that in mind. And here's an article to help reiterate what I just said here, okay? This is from the Huffington Post, entitled, "Trump Leading the United States into War to End a Weapons Program He Claimed He Already Obliterated." President Trump has put the United States on the verge of war against Iran with the goal of ending that nation's nuclear weapons program, less than 8 months after proclaiming he had, quote, completely and totally obliterated, unquote, that same program. The United States Navy already has one carrier strike group within aircraft and missile range of Iran in the Arabian Sea. Another is underway to the Eastern Mediterranean, where it would also be in range and available to protect Israel and American bases in the region from retaliatory strikes. Trump told reporters on Air Force One that Iran had to make, quote, a deal, unquote, in the coming days. Quote, "I would think that would be enough time, 10 to 15 days, pretty much maximum," unquote. That language is nearly identical to what he said on June 19, 2025. Iran had to make an agreement to abandon its nuclear program, quote, within the next 2 weeks, unquote. Trump ordered the military to hit 3 weapons sites in Iran after just 2 days. 8 months later, Trump has not explained why a second attack on Iran is necessary now if the country's nuclear weapons program was in fact destroyed by his airstrike last year. Quote, "Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated," unquote, he told the nation in a White House speech hours after the June 21st, 2025 attack. Quote, "We obliterated Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity, making it impossible for them to have a nuclear weapon, which they would have had probably in about 2 months from then," unquote, he said again in a September the 29th, 2025 photo opportunity with Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Indeed, the White House even posted a page on its website accusing those who questioned Trump's use of that word, pushing, quote, "fake news," unquote. Trump was specifically asked last week, given those earlier claims, why it was necessary to attack Iran's nuclear facilities again. His answer, however, was difficult to understand. quote, well, you could get whatever the dust is down there. That's really the least of the mission. If we do it, that would be the least of the mission. But we'd, probably grab whatever's left. It has been obliterated, as you know, unquote. He told reporters as he prepared to board Air Force One on his way to conduct a political rally at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Thursday morning, Trump told his, quote, board of peace, unquote, meeting that discussions with Iran are continuing, but Iran needs to make a deal. Quote, they cannot continue to threaten the stability of the entire region, and they must make a deal, or if that doesn't happen, I maybe can understand if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, but bad things will happen if it doesn't, unquote, he said. Representatives from Iran and the United States met Tuesday in Geneva, Switzerland, but were unable to reach a deal. Progress towards any agreement seems halting at best. Trump also appears to be ignoring Congress entirely as he moves forward with what could be a major war, unlike former President George W. Bush, who went to Congress for authorization to attack Iraq in 2002. Trump does not appear to have given congressional leaders an update on his intentions, even as his buildup of Air Force and Navy planes and ships in the area continues. Under the Constitution, only Congress can declare war, but presidents since World War II have increasingly taken military action on their own initiative. Congress passed the War Powers Act in 1973 in an attempt to rein that in, but the law only requires the president to notify congressional leaders after the military engagement has taken place. Yeah, that's got to be changed, okay? And too often, yes, it's happened before under different administrations. They don't call it a war, they call it a strike. And supposedly using the word strike doesn't require them to get congressional approval for that. Okay? But if you say war, then by law they have to get congressional approval to fund the war. So a lot of strikes have been done over the decades by this country that, go over the heads of Congress, more or less, okay? So that has to be changed. That has to be rewritten in such a way where the intention behind it remains, that Congress has to approve it, okay? Because you're talking about spending money, taxpayer money on a strike, okay, that has to be approved because Congress is responsible for that. Okay, they're in control of the purse. So when the president's talking about doing international attacks or whatever, I don't care if it's a war or a strike, they still have to get, as far as I'm concerned, permission. Because would you like that if someone dipped into your fucking wallet, took out money for something that they didn't get permission from you to do? No, of course not. Don't lie to yourself. Okay, a strike is still an act of war. You go to a country and you start something, what do you think's going to happen? Retaliation. So what do you think that is? That's a war. But this thing here with Iran, him saying, "Oh, he's twisting the thumb screws on Iran again," after he just told us not even a year ago that Iran can't make anything else. Their program is obliterated. Really? Or was that just a big fucking show? They hit some mountainside over there and said that was a place where they were making these bombs. How do we know that? Like I said before, what can we really believe about this fucking guy when he says anything? You would be wise to distrust everything he says. I wouldn't blame you if you already do, but I would blame people that believe him, okay? And like I said, these folks, whoever they still are, they're a lost cause. These people have to be left behind. They are the fat in our society that must be cut. Okay, without that, we could have a leaner country. We could have a country that functions the way it should if we get rid of these imbeciles. And that's MAGA. These people are a pariah to the system. They are only a cancer that's trying to destroy from the inside what we have had in place for centuries here. And we, with our 250th birthday coming up, we ain't gonna have a lot to show for it by then, where we are today. America, I already declared this country dead here when Trump won his second term. Okay? America's already dead as far as I'm concerned. So we don't really have a 250th birthday per se, because the country that was intended is not what we have now. Okay? A lot of what's been written on paper, the Constitution and all that, has been ignored, in recent years. And now what we have isn't anything like that. So we're really celebrating a birthday of something that's already died. Okay? We don't have a true democracy here anymore, folks. The guy that we got in the White House is not a president. He's a wannabe dictator. And he's been shooting over the heads of Senate and Congress here and the judiciary for months, doing what he wants his way through executive order after executive order. And he doesn't care about the rule of law. He doesn't care about having people follow the law to go out and do what he has them doing right now, which is rounding up illegal immigrants, okay? So he's totally ignoring the spirit of our Constitution in every fucking way possible, okay? And we ought to learn from that, because people want to say he was a successful businessman. Okay, let's take that for a minute. The people want to say he's a businessman. Okay, so that tells us that most businessmen in this country would prefer it that the country worked the way Trump is running it, right? I mean, if you want to take Trump as an example of what a businessman is, then that means that he represents all the businessmen in this country, and perhaps even around the world, that in order for them to get what they want, they have to turn their governments into dictatorships. This makes sense to me, okay? Because look, they're the ones always looking for a tax break. They don't want to contribute to the system they live in. Okay, they don't want to pay their taxes, so they put the burden on all of the rest of us who don't really have as much to give to the tax system. We're the ones that have to sustain a system that could be sustainable if the rich paid their part in it, okay? And, the thing about them saying, it's not fair, we shouldn't have to pay so much. Well, it wouldn't be so much if you didn't spend as much of your own money. 5 houses, a whole shitload of cars, boats, golf courses. Do you really need all of that stuff to live a happy life? I mean, come on. I mean, you're the very example of why money doesn't buy happiness, because you're still buying through the nose, putting yourself deeper and deeper in the fucking hole, so deep now you can't even pay a fucking tax. Okay? This is what we get. So, like I said, if people want to think that Trump, is a successful businessman and we couldn't have something, hey, well then you're showing us that this is what businessmen are. They're criminal in their thinking, they're immoral, they don't have any ethics, and they don't want people to have rights above their own. Okay? They want everybody to be subordinate to the business world. And what do you think Trump is trying to do? I mean, what was it? He had a interview with Stephen Colbert, and then the FCC said to Colbert, "You can't play it." He was supposed to have some interview, and the FCC shut it down. They didn't want him talking to whoever the hell it was. I can't remember, but it was in the news. I just glanced through it. But he doesn't want people to be able to voice any opinion against him, so he's shutting everything down. Okay, that, thinks it's going to hurt him. But the problem is, and this fat bastard doesn't know it yet, that people already hate him. He could shut down every interview from this point on about him. It wouldn't make any difference. There's this one interview from way back, him and Barbara Walters, and I seen it on YouTube, where she nailed him in an interview, and that's still going around, by the way, and caught him in a fucking lie. It was beautiful. That's the time when, it was okay, because he wasn't a president then. He was just a fucking average, nut there with a business. And you could probably find it on YouTube, because that's where it was. Barbara Walters and Donald Trump interview, okay? Yeah, he didn't like that. You could see he was pissed off at her for cornering him like that. But we should have learned from that moment along, but we forgot. I guess we forgot about that interview because we just thought, oh, it was just another reporter attacking a businessman. We didn't know that this guy one day would be sitting in the White House. That's why any of these fucking interviews you see on TV, you have to watch, really. I mean, you got to watch them, because you don't know how important it's going to be years later or just around the corner. But yeah, she revealed him to us back in the 80s, and over time it just went through one ear and out the other, and we forgot all about that. But she, so yeah, look it up. It's on YouTube. Just put in Donald Trump, Barbara Walters. You'll see it. And you'll laugh. All right, let's go to a commercial break. We'll be right back.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Roxy Sugar, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
This guy's been mayor of New York City for 1 month, okay? What he promised was a free bus for everybody, grocery stores run by the government for, poor people to get food, which is a good thing, I think, and that rent was going to go down. Those were like the big 3 things he promised everybody. So today he's got his first meeting with the city about the budget, and what he says is, I'm raising property taxes on everybody by 10%. Okay, rent's not going to go down, actually. He's draining $1 billion from the rainy day fund, which I don't even know what that is, but it doesn't sound good. And none of the free stuff that he promised.
My dude, I'm not going to lie to you. I watched your video, and then I saw on your handle, it said Dr. Johnny. And I found that very concerning, that a doctor would watch Zohran Mamdani's press conference and then come on here and completely misrepresent what he actually said. But then I clicked on your page and it said you were a chiropractor, so I guess it tracks. But let's talk about what Zohran Mamdani actually said and why he said it. What he actually said was, these are the 2 plans that I have. The ultimate goal is to raise taxes on the rich. If Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, who is also up for re-election, does not approve that, then unfortunately, my last resort, I will have no choice but to raise the property taxes of New Yorkers. Now you're probably asking yourself, why on earth would Zohran Mamdani say something like that, knowing it would enrage the majority of New Yorkers? The majority of New Yorkers who would potentially be voting for Kathy Hochul in that election. What you are basically watching unfold is how New York City politics work right before your eyes. You are watching a public negotiation between the mayor of New York City and Kathy Hochul. What Zohran Mamdani is doing is using the public to put pressure on Kathy Hochul to raise taxes on the rich, something she said she's not going to do. But if the polls start showing that raising New Yorkers' property taxes is unpopular, which it kinda is, and poll numbers will affect her election, she will be forced to compromise with Zora Mamdani and find a happy medium. So for all of you out there that are nervous here in New York City that your property taxes might be going up, no, that was all said for you to put pressure on Kathy Hochul. People really need to understand how politics work. Anyways, bye.
According to a recent report, there is a tiny pro-Trump town in Idaho called Wilder. Wilder has a population of a little over 1,700 people. And those 1,700 people in the 2024 election, 91% of them voted for Donald Trump. It's a farming community. Farming is basically the only thing keeping that community afloat, which is why back in October, when ICE came in and arrested 90 migrant farm workers, this tiny pro-Trump town was basically destroyed. They're coming up on harvest season. And now these farmers who voted again, 91% for Donald Trump, are terrified because Trump took all our workers. We don't know what we're going to do. One of them said this: "We rely on Hispanic labor. Nobody thought something like this could happen here." That is his exact quote. Nobody thought something like this could happen here. My God, you may as well have just said, "I never thought leopards would eat my face. I thought they would just eat everybody else's." My heart breaks for what has happened to the Hispanic population there. The horrible part of me laughs at the pain these fucking Trump-supporting farmers are going through. I no longer have sympathy. I no longer have empathy. I have pure, unfettered joy watching your life go down the toilet because of the choices you made, because you wanted to inflict harm on everybody else, without ever stopping to think that maybe it would happen to me. No, you literally say, "I didn't think it would happen to me. Yeah, I knew other people were going to get screwed, and I'm totally cool with that, so piss off. I hope your farm goes under. I hope your crops rot in the field. Because that's what you voted for, and you're getting it. You haven't expressed any remorse. These people aren't coming out and saying, "We made a horrible mistake and I'll never do it again." They're sitting there telling us that, "Man, yeah, I thought everybody else was going to get screwed, but now that I'm getting screwed, I don't feel so good." When you vote to harm other people, and that is why you vote that way, then I'm glad when you get your comeuppance. I'm glad when the things you voted to do to other people happen to you. I wish upon you what you wish upon others. And it's what's happening in that tiny town of Wilder, Idaho.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Welcome back, everybody. All right, so I have this other article here from Mediaite.com. It's entitled, Trump Rages into the Night at Disloyal Republicans After Bombshell Supreme Court Smackdown. Trump raged into the night about disloyalty in a series of social media posts after the Supreme Court ruling that gutted the tariff authority he had claimed under an Emergency Powers Act, or law. On Friday afternoon, Trump held a briefing to blast the bombshell Supreme Court decision striking down his emergency tariff regime. The 6-3 decision included Republican-appointed Chief Justice John Roberts and Trump-appointed Justice Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, as well as 3 Democrat-appointed justices. During that briefing, Trump lashed out at the justices with unbridled bitterness. But he just wasn't finished there. On Friday evening, he began posting angry messages about the decision and, quote, disloyal Republicans, unquote. And this is what he wrote at 7:04 at night. Those members of the Supreme Court who voted against our very acceptable and proper method of tariffs should be ashamed of themselves. Their decision was ridiculous, but now the adjustment process begins, and we will do everything possible to take in even more money than we were taking in before. Later that same hour, Trump added a message singling out his appointees. What happened today with the 2 United States Supreme Court justices that I appointed against great opposition, Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, whether people like it or not, never seems to happen with Democrats. They vote against the Republicans and never against themselves almost every single time, no matter how good a case we have. At least I didn't appoint Roberts, who led the effort to allow foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years to continue to do so, but we won't let it happen. The new tariffs, totally tested and accepted as law, are on their way. President Donald J. Trump. As the night drew longer, Trump offered a final message at 10:21 p.m., writing, quote, Republicans are so disloyal to themselves. Unite, stick together, and win. President DJT, unquote. Yeah. What can I say? Hey, talk about a crybaby, right? He's up all hours of the night, posting online. I mean, he's probably the only guy that's, 80 years old that does what he does online, okay? You don't see people his age spending all that time online commenting on every fucking thing. At least he's the only guy. Okay? I mean, he's like glued to that fucking phone that he's on there when he's texting or posting shit online. Sometimes I wonder, is it really him or is it somebody else? This guy's got to sleep sometime. I mean, he's falling asleep at events all the time. I feel like, how could this guy be up at sometimes even 2, 3 o'clock in the morning posting shit. You know, that might explain why he's tired the rest of the day and falling asleep at events with, you know, meetings with other foreign leaders. I mean, come on. Can't these people in this regime control this monster here any better than they are? Because look, he's not making it easy for the people that he hires to work around him. Okay, when you see the head of it looking like this, okay, but you know, it's just it'd be kind of laughable if it was a movie that you had such a unattached, person doing a job that he wasn't meant to do, who's doing all this other stuff on the side, and he's trying to cover his footsteps and his track with crimes that he committed. You know, I mean, he's so busy with everything else that he's really just throwing, you know, blind pitches here at the more serious matters, and then he's not even really paying attention. You know, he likes the camera around him so he can put on a show, but he doesn't like to be there for somebody else's show, so he has to sit and listen. You know, I mean that explains why he's so not in touch with the room when he's in there. You know, he's just falling asleep and he's not listening. He just has these ideas and this stuff in his mind that he wants to blurt out, you know, in his half-assed manner that he does, by attacking the press or attacking a leader of a country, or, you know what I'm saying? But he never has like anything positive or anything substantial to contribute to anything that goes on, you know, because he's so detached from his job. He spends all fucking night bitching about what he can't have, and then the next day he's not even there mentally. The lights are on, but nobody's home, okay, and he's just he's just winging it, you know. I mean, he makes George W. Bush look better in comparison. And I used to think George W. Bush was pretty dumb. I mean, about a lot of things that he did. And he certainly wasn't all there for the job he was given. But this guy makes him look better, you know, and that's pretty fucking bad, you know. So, you know, I thought this was kind of funny that he's sitting here having a fit here on his damn phone over this. And here's this article here about Elon Musk here, if you're going to find this interesting. Entitled, "Almost Half of Jury Pool in Musk Trial Tossed After So Many Said They Hate Him." Elon Musk may have been contemplating snacking on a few earthworms after a brutal treatment by a jury pool in San Francisco, with almost half of the prospective jurors being disqualified because they declared their hatred for the tech CEO. One even went so far as to say he wanted to see Musk in prison. The case stems from a class action lawsuit filed in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California by investors in Twitter, the predecessor to Musk's X platform, who allege he violated federal securities laws with his months of public indecision over purchasing the company as a scheme to drive down the price of shares before he completed the purchase in October of 2022, causing the investors financial harm. According to Bloomberg Law, the trial is expected to last about 3 weeks, and likely witnesses to be called to the stand include Musk and former Twitter CEO Parag Agrawal. But before the trial can begin, a jury must be selected. A judge, Charles R. Breyer, had a tougher time than usual due to the notorious reputation of the defendant. Breyer, a Clinton appointee and younger brother of former Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer, began jury selection by commenting to the lawyers for both sides that Musk had achieved a level of fame that was, quote, like the President of the United States, unquote. You mean infamy, not fame, infamy. There's a difference. And even if they, quote, searched the entire country, unquote, it would probably be nearly impossible to find someone who did not have some sort of opinion about Musk. Quote, as a public figure, he will excite strong views, and for him in particular, people have strong views, unquote. Breyer added, quote, "The question is, and courts are very clear about this, is whether they can set them aside," unquote. Finding 9 jurors who could put their opinions about Musk aside to be properly fair and impartial took over 5 hours. Out of the jury pool of 93, Breyer dismissed 40 of them right off the bat when he asked who did not feel they could set aside their biases, and they raised their hands. The questionnaire, filled out by all prospective jurors, revealed many of them voiced negative opinions about Musk, the companies he owns, or his political activities connected to President Trump administration and his short-lived but highly controversial involvement with Doge. According to Bloomberg Law, quote, one prospective juror stated that he could be impartial in a civil trial, but that if this were a criminal trial, he would have moral obligation to convict Musk and send him to prison, unquote. Unsurprisingly, that juror was eliminated, as were one man who said he could be impartial, but in his questionnaire declared that he disagreed, quote, with the existence of billionaires, unquote, and a woman who said she hated how Musk had conducted mass layoffs among Twitter's content moderators. Stephen Broom, one of Musk's attorneys, lamented to the court that there were, quote, so many people, unquote, in the jury pool, quote, who hate him so much that we're becoming desensitized, unquote, commenting that normally if a prospective juror said in the questionnaire they hated the defendant, quote, there would be no question, unquote, that juror would be dismissed. The trial is scheduled to begin on March 2nd. So that's coming up. But they can't find a juror. They can't find it's like, well, you get what you deserve. You get what you create, okay? Elon Musk is not liked. To think that, okay, this guy, like I said, meddled in with politics, okay, it's always a bad thing. If you want a career in life, the last thing you want to do is get mixed up in politics, because that stain will follow you for the rest of your life. That's why actors should never speak out politically on anything, okay? They should just do their vote in private. Don't tell anybody who they voted for. Just shut your mouth, because you might be a celebrity. It might get you limelight. It might give you the platform for a time to say what you want to say, but that will follow you. Like if you were to take a nude picture of yourself and put it on the internet. Okay? Don't do it. You don't want to do it. But Musk, he got himself tied in deep with Trump, and now people despise him. And, it shouldn't be a bad thing against the people that people have already made up their mind about this guy, okay? Because Musk created this bed for himself. Now he's in trouble here with things, and he wants an impartial jury. Well, you can search the ends of the earth here, and you're not going to find that many who are going to stand with this guy. And if you do find an impartial jury, how much do they really know about this guy? Okay? I mean, think about that. To find somebody who can be impartial with Musk would mean that they weren't they weren't paying attention to the shit this guy was doing. So could an impartial jury actually be a good jury? Or should we have a jury that already knows this guy and is able to understand that he is, somebody you need to avoid? Okay, that's kind of the thing here is, so what? I mean, it wasn't the media that created Musk. It was Musk out there doing things the media talked about. So, yeah, people have a right to have their opinions, but they shouldn't expect to be able to find a jury pool amongst the world of the reality. Okay, you're asking these people to come into this courtroom without any knowledge of Musk or who he is or what he's done, and to rule favorably or impartially in a case they don't know this guy. It's It's different when it's involving a single crime. Okay, you got to have proof to substantiate there was a crime committed. Okay, you have to have proof of that. In any case, if you don't know the accused, and you don't know a pattern of history, you're not going to be as inclined to be readily agreeable to the proof that's presented to you. But if you know the person's history, okay, and you hear what that individual's charged with, and you see the evidence that's presented, okay, to me that seems to be, a very clear picture being made. It's not unfair, okay, and a person should be judged by those people that know him, his peers, right? And how can you be a peer if you don't know this person? I mean, to people to see that they show up and they say, "Oh, I don't like the guy. I think he should be in prison." Okay, then clearly this guy or this person who said that knew him, or knows of what he's done. Okay, and should that be put against that juror when they have to go to court and they hear about something else? It makes it more believable, doesn't it? And that's what you want. You want the jurors to have a good understanding of this individual. It's like the Bill Cosby case, and how, the victims were lining up to testify against him and stuff, okay? And they needed to paint that picture for the jury. So that way it was easier for them to believe that this guy could do what he did. And because think about it, it was hard to find a jury that was going to look at Bill Cosby in any other way than just this guy that was on TV and made us laugh, okay? But you had to tear that down in order for people to judge him according to, the facts. But what if it's the reverse? Okay? What if we know the person is bad, okay, and the court wants to tear that down? So the jury has to sit and listen to just facts or just this without really knowing the guy. That can be countered by the defense. The defense can sit there and say, "Oh, that he's not like that," They might even throw out past things that he did and say, "No, we can't allow that in court. That would taint the jury." No, when they say taint the jury, that would give the jury a little more information for which to make their basis of a ruling. We shouldn't limit them, okay? Yeah, we should keep the commentary away from them, from other people making up their mind, but we shouldn't limit their access to the facts by saying certain things can't be admitted in court because it would taint the jury. Well, tainting the jury and educating the jury are two different things. Okay, the jury should know everything there is to know about the person that they're looking at, they are about to condemn to whatever punishment they're going to condemn them to. They should have a pretty big book there, an encyclopedia of this person's habits, and nothing should be taken away. But outside opinions clearly are not needed. Okay, but they should know, and people that they've been following this guy, they see what he's done, they sees the corrupt nature that he did things with Trump. I mean, come on. Like I said, these are the people you want to sit on the trial. These are the jurors you want, because you won't have to play the game to convince them that this guy is guilty. The defense is going to be the one that's going to have the trouble trying to convince the jury that, oh, he didn't do this or he didn't do that. Okay, how are you going to do that when people see a history of what this guy has been doing? Okay, it'd be like putting Jeffrey Epstein on trial and then keeping out all the victims that he molested or whatever from coming into the court because, oh, he'll taint the jury. Okay, it's like, no. You're looking at it bass-ackwards, okay? You want these people coming in. You want the jury to hear the stories. You want them to see what's happened, okay? I don't know. You guys can think what you want about that, but with Elon Musk, I mean, it's not hard to say that you know, he got caught something there, you know, and of course, you know, he did something. All right, and oh God, but it's funny when they're sitting there saying, "Oh, we can't find a goddamn jury out there because everybody hates a guy." It's like, well, you can't blame the jury for that. Blame Musk, because he's made a pretty big fucking thing about it in the last since Trump got elected. He spent a lot of time out there making himself so hated. Okay, and now he wants to throw himself on the mercy of his peers, and he's mad that they can't find buddy that can look at him, as just a person. A person with charges. Okay, I'm sorry, but you put your neck out there, it's going to get lopped off. What the hell do you expect? Your actions, your past actions, they all come into play at some point in your life to make a choice for somebody else to make. Okay, you can't just live your life and think nothing you do is going to come back at you later on. Bullshit. Okay? If you think you can live your life the way you want and have nothing come back, then I don't know what to tell you, except you're not going to have a very happy life, because most of the time, things you do wrong come back and bite you in the ass, And Musk clearly was one of them guys that didn't learn that lesson soon enough, because he's been doing shit for months now, or even longer, okay, even before the politics that he was in, way before that. He was out there doing stuff that, clearly was not right, okay? And that's why him and Trump were like that, because they were probably in cahoots with each other for different things. But people just can't ignore things like that, can't ignore facts, And if you want to be a person that doesn't have to worry about your actions coming back to haunt you, then you should live a life that's private, and don't get involved in something that puts you out in the spotlight the way the way Musk did for himself. Don't do it. Okay? Don't let people know who you are. Don't go out there with "Seek Heil," like that. Don't be doing that shit. Because people will remember that. People are gonna remember that crap, and that's gonna stick with them more than anything else you do. I mean, look what's happened with the cars, the Tesla cars. I mean, Christ, people are dumping those things all over the place. They don't want to be associated with that monster. Okay? Who would? So, yeah. But, I thought that was, reading that was kind of funny. But, at the same time, it's very telling. Musk, like Trump, has damaged his image globally. And if you think you're going to find a jury that's, if Trump ever goes to trial for the Epstein shit, if you think you're going to find a jury that's going to look at him as just a person, good fucking luck, okay? Because Trump has done a very good job of burning his own bridges and just, destroying his image in a very short time. Nobody else could have done better than him at destroying themselves than Trump, okay? He really, really destroyed himself. And infamy, yeah, all that. So his legacy is already written now. I mean, he can't avoid that no matter what, okay? He's already sunk. All right, so that's it for today. So I hope everybody has a great rest of the work week. So subscribe, comment, share, keep your ears open for any health issues out there, and help each other out when times are tough. And I'll talk to you guys later, so take care, everybody.